Hey everyone, Scott here, and today I just wanted to make a quick video to kind of bring your attention to something that I came across and I thought was quite interesting. It's not really something I think you could make a viable deck around, but it is interesting to think about nonetheless. And so what I wanted to bring to your attention is the fact that it's actually possible in this game to take an infinite number of turns. And the cards that kind of make up the core of this combo that actually allows us to take extra turns, there's only two of them. The first is this one here, Whis, Judge of the Gods. And the important part for what we're talking about here is the auto that it has. When you play it, if your leader is Beerus, after your current turn ends, you take another turn. And this card all the way back from the first set in the game. So I think a lot of newer players may not even know that there even are any cards in this game that let you take extra turns. This Whis currently is the only one that lets you take another turn after your current turn ends. I know from other games like Magic and stuff that can be quite a powerful effect. If it's not kind of kept under wraps, it can kind of really quickly spiral out of control. Obviously this Whis hasn't been an issue in the game because, well, the biggest point here is that it costs 12 with a specified 6 blue. There really is no way in the game currently to kind of reduce its energy cost or to cheat it out in any way. You really do have to pay the full 12 for it. So how can we actually take an infinite number of turns with this card, considering that at most we could have 4 copies of it in our deck? So you'd think that would only let you take 4 additional turns. So there's actually a few cards that let you bounce your own cards back to your hand in blue. One that comes to mind would be the Hercule and Boo, the red-blue one from Dropbox 4. That lets you bounce back a blue card at the end of your turn. But again, you could only have 4 of those Hercule and Boos in your deck, so that'd be an extra 4, so that'd be 8. How do we get from potentially 8 to an infinite amount of extra turns? And the main way we would do it would be with this Kibito from set 3. He has an activate main, which you switch him to rest mode, and then you choose one of your battle cards and return it to your hand. Also lets you return a 3 or less to your opponent's hand, but we don't necessarily need to do that part. We just want to return one of our own battle cards to our hand. So it's just this simple little 2-card combo. We have the Kibito Kai on the board. We play the Whis then from our hand by paying 12. Then that means at the end of the turn we'll take an extra turn. So then we switch the Kibito Kai to rest mode, bounce the Whis back to our hand. We end our turn. So then we start the extra turn that we're taking. During the charge phase, we draw the card, and then all our cards restand, including the Kibito Kai, and all the energy that we paid last turn for the Whis. That also all restands, so then we can potentially charge a card if we want to, but then we can pay 12 again, play the Whis out again, and we'll take another turn again at the end of that. Then we use the Kibito Kai again, and you can see we go over and over again. We can just keep playing this Whis during our extra turns, to take another turn straight afterwards, and that just doesn't give our opponent the ability to kind of play the game. Obviously, if they have any kind of counterplay for either of these cards, neither of them have like either deflect or barrier, so Kibito Kai could very easily get charismatic villain. The Whis could very easily get God Sealand, and then you pay 12 to do nothing, because the Whis will stay in our hand. So that is why I don't think this is necessarily something you could build a viable deck around. Just the 2 main cards you kind of need to have out, or you need to play out from your hand. They're just too vulnerable, and in the case of the Whis, it just costs too much. Like, obviously it's a strong effect, but to pay 12 and to potentially not even have it hit the board, it's just too much for you to consistently be able to run this in a deck and actually win games with it. But still, you may think, well, okay, we can keep taking the extra turns, but how can we take an infinite number of turns? Because at the start of each of the extra turns we take, we draw a card during the charge phase. So there's 2 main ways that I know of doing this. They both also happen to be in blue, and they both happen to be from World Martial Arts Tournament, and I have them down here in the side deck. So the first one would be this card here, Scuffle Time Mr. Boo. He has an activate main, and the cost to activate the activate main is to put this card on the bottom of its owner's deck from the battle area. And then the effect of the skill we don't really care about. We don't actually have to have the corresponding Goten on the board. Really all we're interested in with this card is that it lets us put it back to the bottom of our deck. So theoretically, as long as we had 2 of these in our deck, we could keep taking a infinite number of turns because you draw 1, play it, use its activate main, put it on the bottom of the deck, and then we can take another turn, in which case we'll draw the other Boo that's in our deck, play it, put it to the bottom, and we can keep doing that an infinite number of times, along with obviously the Whis and the Kibito Kai combo to keep being able to take extra turns. So this is one way we have of stopping ourselves from kind of decking out. Obviously this introduces the fact that we need to then pay an extra 1 in order to play the Scuffle Time Mr. Boo each turn, so we'd have to have like at least 13 energy charged, which wouldn't be too big of a deal. Like once you were able to pull this kind of extra turn combo off once, you could easily charge an extra energy if you're sure your opponent is not going to be able to kind of interfere with it in any way. But then there is also another kind of pair of cards that would allow us to not deck out, and it's the Awkward Situation pair. So it's a Trunks and I'm going to struggle to pronounce this, Otokosuki, I think is maybe how it's pronounced. Yeah, these pair have a kind of similar sort of effect in the sense that as long as you have the Trunks out, this Trunks here, you can play the 4-drop. I'm just going to refer to it as a 4-drop now. You can play this 4-drop from your hand for free without paying its energy cost. And then the Trunks has an activate main once per turn. And the cost to activate it is you choose one of the 4 costs in your battle area and place it at the bottom of its owner's deck. And then the actual effect of the skill doesn't matter. Like if your leader is World Tournament, our leader wouldn't be World Tournament because it needs to be Beerus for the Whis. But it doesn't really matter what the effect is. It's just the cost we're interested in. And again, similar to with the Boo, as long as we had 2 of this 4 cost in our deck, when we start taking infinite turns over and over again, or we start taking turns over and over again, just as soon as we draw one, we play it for free because we had the Trunks out, use the Trunks, put it to the bottom, and then as long as there's, like I say, at least 2 in the deck, you draw 1 card for your turn, play it, put it back on the bottom, so your deck will never go below 2 cards really, except for at the beginning of the turn when you actually draw. Then it would go down to 1. But literally the first thing you would do each turn is take the card you just drew and place it back on the bottom of the deck. And so this, really either of these kind of, either this Awkward Situation pair or the Scuffle Time Mr. Boo, these basically are the cards that allow us to not deck out. And like I say, in combination with the Whis and the Kibito, we're able to just take an infinite number of turns. What you would actually want to do with an infinite number of turns, I don't really know. I mean, if you're using this rebooted Beerus that I've got here, or even the original non-rebooted version from set 1, they both have the activate main, you pay 16 and you win the game. So I guess you could use this kind of infinite extra turns thing to just, you keep charging until you get to 16 and then you just pay that 16 to win the game. Like obviously this is something you can only start to do once you have 12 energy down, so really it only lets you get from say 12 to 16, which is like 4 extra turns is all you need to take. Again, I don't think this is something you could really build a viable deck around. It's kind of an awkward kind of combo to pull off. It takes a lot of energy. It involves playing a lot of cards in a very specific order. Like I say, if your opponent just has any way of dealing with the Kibito, the kind of infinite loop is potentially completely busted unless you had even more copies you're able to play out. If your opponent is able to deal with the Trunks or the Scuffle Time Mr. Boo or the 4-drop guy, then you're not able to keep filling your deck back up and you will eventually deck out and lose the game. So, I mean, if you were going to build a deck around playing out this kind of 12 cost Whis, I think you would probably just rely on the fact that it's a 40k quad strike. and you just try and win the game that way by attacking into your opponent kind of for lethal. I mean, there's even the fact that it has that permanent there, which means its attacks can't be negated. So really, all you probably need to do is play this guy out, swing with it. If your opponent's able to kind of get out of the attack, then fine. You just take another turn, this guy switches to active mode again, and then you send another 40k quad strike attack at your opponent's leader. That is probably how you would try to use this Whis if you wanted to build a deck around it, but there is also this thing where it's technically possible to do an infinite number of turns. Basically, the reason I came across this at all was that I was looking through the official rules manual and there was a section about infinite loops, and I just got curious. Are there actually any kind of infinite loops you could pull off in the game? And this just happens to be one of them. Again, I would not recommend trying to build a deck around it. I don't think you would win very many games, if any, really. This is just too difficult of a combo to pull off reliably, but I just thought I'd bring it to people's attention because I thought it was interesting. If you thought this video was interesting, go ahead and leave a like on it. That really helps me out. If you want to be notified when new videos get posted to the channel, go ahead and subscribe now if you haven't already. And thanks for watching.